After what feels like years of rumors that this was happening, yesterday it was confirmed, officially announced, that The Last of Us Part 1, a game released in 2013, is getting a full-on remake. I honestly, when we first started hearing rumblings about this, I thought, no way. No way is this industry that creatively bankrupt. I know times are tough in the original idea department, but we haven't fallen that far. To get a complete remake for this game that's not even 10 years old, it just doesn't make any sense. And I guess that's why I should have known it was happening. If it doesn't make sense to me, then, I mean, of course, it's 100% gonna happen. We got a trailer and everything for it during Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest. In fact, I think this was the big announcement to close out the presentation. If you want to know how much of an overall waste of time this thing was, went on for like 2 hours. And again, this remake of a game that's not even 10 years old was the big thing. I mean, for me, for us real gamers, men of culture, obviously it was the announcement that TMNT Shredder's Revenge is getting Casey Jones as a playable character, is going to have 6-player co-op, and the big bang that one left off on, it's coming out next week. Yeah, I mean, for real gamers, that was the big announcement, but in terms of name value, your casuals, certainly this was the big announcement. So yeah, you had everyone's favorite developer, Neil Druckmann himself, on the stage with Jeff Keighley. He brought out Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson, the voice talent for Joel and Ellie. They were all there to act like this was something we needed. I think the first question that jumps right out at you, but a lot of people are kind of afraid to ask, but I've got no problem being that guy, has got to be, why would you remake Part 1 when Part 2 is the one that sucks? Make that one again from scratch. But yeah, joking aside, seriously, when I saw the screenshots start floating around comparing The Last of Us remaster to this remake, I actually thought it was. I thought maybe I was right. Like, this was going to be another remaster, a remaster of the remaster. Because it didn't look that different. I mean, would they really go through the trouble of doing a complete remake for this level of an upgrade? I mean, some of these shots, honestly, there are aspects that look better in the PS4 remaster. Sure, some of that's going to have to do with, like, the lighting in that, but, you know, I noticed, like, Joel's shirt in the one screenshot, I thought it looked better, more detailed in the PS4 version. And it's also kind of weird. I'm sure a lot of this remake, you know, is based off of stuff from Last of Us 2, but both Ellie and Joel with these new models look older, and it just feels kind of weird to me when you consider, you know, the timeline of everything. I could see that feeling a bit odd. But no, Druckmann did say in this presentation, quote, everything was rebuilt from the ground up. So, I mean, I'll ask this rhetorically. We all know the answer, which I'll get into towards the end. Why in the world are we going through this much trouble remaking a game that's not even 10 years old? I do think, you know, this new version overall looks great. Again, the original looked great too, because I feel like when people like me are making fun of this on Twitter, some people are kind of getting confused, like I'm trying to act like, oh, this looks like shit and the old game looks so much better. No, the key issue I have with this, once more, is this idea that this level of upgrade is worth completely remaking the game. And was this something anyone was asking for? I certainly have never seen anyone talk about how The Last of Us feels so dated or anything and it should be remade. And of course, all these resources could have went towards making something new or remaking something else. If we're sticking in the Naughty Dog camp, I mean, Jak and Daxter, we could do something with that. Again, whether it be a new game, a remake, you get something for the PS5 that's like visually on par with the new Ratchet and Clank game. I think that could be awesome. But no, we're gonna fully remake this so Joel and Ellie have more realistic facial expressions or something. It just seems like a waste to me in so many ways. Again, I know, guys, I know the reason. We're gonna talk about it. I will say I am happy that it seems like they're pretty much going for a one-to-one remake type deal. You know, I don't want them screwing around too much with the story in that, because I think, you know, this game, again, is phenomenal. I was worried at first when I saw the box art, because that was the first thing I saw when I just opened Twitter in the morning and people were talking about this. I just saw the box art, and it's got like Ellie's big face all over it, and then Joel's shrunk down in the corner, and my first thoughts are like, oh no, are we getting something like that's going to be completely different from the original version? But when they showed the trailer, the screenshots, some of the comparisons people have done between those, it looks like this is going to be pretty much the same game, which, again, comes back to the idea of what is this all for again? So yeah, kind of going through a multi-layer thought process just in my head, I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, at least they're not going to really change the game too much. Like in motion, it looks almost identical to the remaster. Like when I was watching footage of these games side by side, I almost couldn't tell which one was which. This is a game that obviously still plays great, holds up well today. We're not talking about clunky controls from like a retro PS1 or N64 game, so there's no reason to mess too much with the gameplay. Like I said, I don't want to see them totally change the story, make it like open world or anything like that, because I don't think that's going to make a game that's better than the original. And then my brain again is like, wait, that's a selling point? I'm legit, I'm convincing myself into buying the same game again because it's so similar to the game I already have. This whole thing, it just doesn't process with me. I know there are people who build up these straw mans like, oh, with remakes, the fans are never happy. If they change it too much, they complain. If they don't change it enough, they complain. No, to me, this stuff should be reserved to games that need like a visual bump in quality, that have, like I said, really clunky controls that feel dated. I mean, to me, that's the point of remaking a game. So when the game doesn't feel dated, it's going to be hard for me to convince myself that this is something I want. Because I'll even admit, I'll concede that just going off of how old the game isn't quite good enough of an argument, because I've seen people point in these discussions towards the original Resident Evil remake, because there also wasn't that much time between that game and its original release. But again, you compare those two games side by side, try to tell me with a straight face that you can't tell which one's which, or that there are elements about the original that look better than the remake. You can't. If you are able in a smaller amount of time to get that big of a difference in a fan favorite game, then yeah, maybe it is worth remaking. Once more, to me, if you're gonna go the full remake route, not just do like a straight up remaster, I'd better see a significant difference, and I don't see it at all here. So let's get into a bit of course, why this is actually happening. While it is fun to laugh at, it does kind of worry me in terms of setting a precedent, which The Last of Us already has a bad history with, in my opinion. I remember freaking out seeing the remaster release on the PS4, what was it, like a year after the PS3 game came out, and I had to buy it again at full price. There was no way to get like an upgrade, a discount with the original, because obviously no backwards compatibility, so I had to buy the game again like a year later to play it in 1080p, 60 frames per second, basically. And we've since seen similar instances having to re-buy these games, pay for slightly upgraded versions. It's become a common practice now. We're doing it again on the PS5 with PS4 games. So yeah, I worry that these remakes of newer games is going to become like the next trend. I mean, could you imagine getting a remake of God of War in the next 4 to 5 years? And I'm talking about the new one, not like the original. I mean, 4 to 5 years, that would put that game, in terms of age, around the time frame of how old the original Last of Us is now. I mean, God, apply that to other companies. You want to talk about a game that I think should be remade, that I've talked about many times, that I think deserves like a high quality, big effort remake? Ocarina of Time, one of the best games of all time. Imagine if instead of like remaking that, again, 4 to 5 years, Nintendo remade Breath of the Wild. I mean, it's almost like you need to apply this to other franchises to really see how ridiculous this sounds. In like a Nintendo Direct in the next 2 to 3 years, you got that announcement, a Breath of the Wild remake is in the works. You'd be like, what the fuck are the people at Nintendo smoking? Because I want some. And of course, I know the reason this is happening. Why am I worried about it becoming a trend? Because this game is going to be successful. This is something that's already proven to work with this game. If people are going to drop $60 on a PS4 version of this game to play it, again, in 1080p, 60 frames per second, when they already dropped 64 a year before on the PS3, I'm sure they'll drop 70 for this PS5 remake. Yes, in terms of a Jak and Daxter, even though, you know, that's an IP that's been kind of put by the wayside for so long, yes, this will be more successful than if you brought that back. I know that. I know the business reason for it, and again, that's why it makes me worried. Because again, let's stick with this. Let's stick with Last of Us and, you know, perhaps bringing back Jak and Daxter. It's like, well, we're going to use these resources now in a Last of Us 1 remake. Let's fast forward to, you know, the next generation, the PS6. Are we going to be like, oh, well, you know, yet again, we're going to have to we can't do anything with Jak and Daxter because now it's time for the Last of Us 2 remake. And by the time we get to the PS7, it's like, well, now we definitely need to remake the Last of Us 1 again. Let's get that remake of the remake going. I mean, is that where we're headed? I mean, because all of those things, as ridiculous as they sound, they'll all sell. People will buy them. You know, I find this funny to kind of bring it back to other franchises and stuff. This will also kind of help tie some of this together. We've got some other big horror-themed games coming out soon. The Resident Evil 4 remake and the Dead Space remake. Yeah, now we can add the Last of Us remake to this list. Wow, this is some really groundbreaking stuff, guys. And it's like you look at those games and you can actually kind of apply a similar logic. Resident Evil 4, while much older than Last of Us, in a similar vein, I think, has aged pretty well. Now, am I saying it shouldn't get a remake or anything like that? No. But is that really the next Resident Evil game that should get remade? Do I have any Steve Burnside enjoyers out there? What about Code Veronica? Oh, that's right. Well, Code Veronica would actually make sense. Would benefit greatly from a remake. It's just got one little problem with it. It's not a big name like Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 is considered by many one of the greatest survival horror games of all time. You slap that name on the box, people are gonna buy it just for that reason. Dead Space, again, even newer than Resident Evil 4, also has aged very well. Why not just make a new Dead Space? We did make that Dead Space 3, and didn't sell so well. I don't know if we want to take a chance really on trying to do a whole new thing. Oh, no, let's go the safe route. Remaking the ones that people already like. So yeah, while I wouldn't necessarily put these games in the same class as the Last of Us 1 remake, you can kind of see how this would build. Like with Resident Evil 4, up until now, I would never assume that they'd keep going. Like, I'd assume Resident Evil 4 would be the last remake. But now with this Last of Us news, when Last of Us 1 remake inevitably sells, would it be crazy to think that they're just going to keep going? Resident Evil 5 remake next? You may not like that game as much, but it's certainly sold well. I'm sure this is going to be successful, and as we always see in this industry, when something is a success, everyone's going to be looking to follow suit. And if everyone's looking around like, hey, instead of, you know, trying to make a whole new game, even just a new entry in an established franchise, remember, because that was the thing we used to make fun of, you know, how it's like every game is a sequel because that's playing it safe. No, that's too risky now. Let's just go back and take the actual individual games in these franchises that sold well and only remake those. I guess at least that'd be better than NFT games. That's the nicest thing I could say about that, if that is the direction we're heading in. I don't know. I don't want this to turn into too much of a mindless rant, so I'll cut it off here. With that, this video is a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on The Last of Us Part 1 Remake in the comments. Are you excited for this game to finally make a comeback at the remake treatment? We can fix up all the poor visual quality and clunky controls. Or do you think these resources could have been used better on something else? And I guess kind of, as I was rambling about the end, does this kind of make you worried that this is the route we're headed in now? Let's not even spend as much time continuing these established franchises. Let's just remake, repackage the individual games that have already been an incredible success. As always, I'm the Shy Guy, Johnny Zakari, and thanks for watching.